Real intrigue in the unfolding of things at the top. LSU jumping Ohio State on the strength of their win over Georgia in the SEC championship game. They are number one. The Buckeyes of The Ohio State University 13-0 on the season. That dynamic offense, incredible Chase Young-led defense. They lock up the number 2 spot and the golden opportunity of taking on number 3, Clemson. Trevor Lawrence of the Tigers a bit shaky at the start of the year, and then they came on like gangbusters, flat out running teams en route to an ACC championship victory. And then Oklahoma, a little intrigue going into the Big 12 championship game, but they handle their business. They, in fact, get in to the college football playoff. A look at our reporters covering all that's gone down. Marty Smith, Tom Rinaldi, Gene Wojciechowski, Maria Taylor on the way in just a bit, but we begin with the number 1 team in college football, Marty Smith on the Bayou Bengals.
The instant Ohio State was revealed as the number 2 team in the college football playoff rankings, there was an audible roar directly above us here at the LSU football facility as the Tigers realized they were number 1. Now they head to Atlanta to face Lincoln Riley and the Oklahoma Sooners. Coach Ed Orgeron came downstairs and chatted with me, said he's extremely impressed with what Riley has done in Norman with that prolific offense, now led by Jalen Hurts. Coach O has faced Hurts before when he was the quarterback at Alabama, said he was extremely impressed with Hurts' ability to run the football. They'll have to be very sound defensively to slow that offense down. The players off here today at LSU as the coaches are off on the recruiting trail, but one player did show up for treatment. The guy who might hoist the Heisman next weekend, quarterback Joe Burrow. Now let's head up to Columbus, Ohio, and Tom Rinaldi, who's with the Buckeyes. Tom?
The plan for Sunday for Ohio State was simple. After winning the Big Ten title in Indy, return to campus and then gather as a team to watch the final ranking. Ohio State entered Sunday the number 1 team in the country, but in the final CFP ranking, number 2. The reaction inside the room was interesting. Some disappointment, initial silence, but quickly a round of applause and excitement, perhaps even with an echo of defiance. Ryan Day addressed the team almost immediately after with a very simple message. The ranking does not matter. What does? It's a 2-game season. And to get where we want to go, to a national title, we'd have to beat the best teams anyway. Day now hits the road in recruiting, while the Ohio State Buckeyes rest, recover, and then resume practice later this week.
Thanks, Tom. Well, as the championship playoff selection Sunday dust settles, Clemson is rolling out of their pizza party, but Dabo Swinney had a message he wanted delivered to his team as soon as the announcement was made, and that's that they're making history. For the first time since 1966, they're a team that started number 1 in the country, went undefeated, and finished number 3. That's right, he's placing that chip back squarely on his shoulders. Well, afterwards, he made sure that his team took some time to celebrate the fact that they are in the playoff and have an opportunity to prove it, and that's exactly what they want to do looking forward. Now we go to Gene Wojciechowski in Norman, Oklahoma with the Sooners.
Thanks, Maria. Oklahoma fans think their season was saved at Baylor in November when OU overcame a 25-point deficit. But the truth is, according to Lincoln Riley, the season might have been saved after a loss at Kansas State. That's when Riley told his team, stay focused. Other teams are going to lose. Just start winning again. And that's exactly what happened. Riley also mentioned quarterback Jalen Hurts. He thinks Hurts deserves an invitation to New York for that Heisman ceremony. And a quick history lesson. The last time Oklahoma and LSU met was all the way back in 2003 at the Sugar Bowl for the national championship. That night, Nick Saban's LSU team beat Bob Stoops' OU team 21-14. Back to you.
All right, Gino, thanks so much. Well, Vegas got busy pretty quickly making out the lines. Look at that, LSU -10. That might be attractive to some folks who maybe feel that the game might be decided by more than just 10 points. Over under 77, and then Ohio State and Clemson. Look how tight it is. Tigers -2. Reese and the guys breaking down the national semifinals.
First time in the history of the college football playoff that neither Alabama nor Clemson are number 1 in the rankings, so that might be a mild surprise, but no big surprise as to who got in. You've got LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oklahoma. You do have LSU moving to number 1. You have any big surprise of what you saw from the committee?
No. I think all of us kind of had the opinion that whoever you put there, you can put there, and we're not going to argue with you. But I think you look at the final polls and you look at LSU and who they beat, You beat 4 teams in the top 13. It's a pretty good resume. You have the best quarterback in the country. That's pretty daggum good things to point to. And also, defense peaking and playing better the last couple days. So I think the committee, that's what they said. That's why they put LSU number 1.
I was surprised that they moved LSU back to number 1. I think a couple weeks back when Ohio State was moved ahead of LSU, the strength of record, strength of schedule was still in LSU's favor. But the committee looked at the Ohio State team and said, overall, we believe they're a better football team. Then Ohio State goes out at Michigan, which is top 14. Then they win the Big Ten championship game. I just thought that Ohio State would stay at number 1, but I have absolutely no problem whatsoever with LSU being number 1.
I agree with LSU at number 1. They're there because of the resume. They're there because they're peaking at the right time. I think if I was Ohio State, I'd be very disappointed with the committee's decision because I'd feel like they're not evaluating all 13 games throughout the course of the year. They beat 5 top 21 teams. They averaged their margin for victory in all of their games this year was 36 points. It was the most in college football, and they've been dominant on both sides of the ball all season long. They've got players on each side that could get invited to New York City for the Heisman Trophy. So picking a team playing its best football now versus the team that played its best over 13 games would make me upset if I'm Ohio State because now I have the toughest road to reach the national championship game having to play Clemson.
That's the deal. Splitting the hairs between number 1 is hard to pound the fist on the table for either LSU or Ohio State. But all of you guys seem to believe that it is a massive disadvantage to have to face the reigning national champions in the semis.
All right, quick line check now. Get Reese, Jesse, Joey, and David out of there, and we're back.
All right.
Kev, Coach, and Ach here in studio. Look, guys, we talked about it every single Sunday morning, right, on Championship Drive, who's in, who are the 4 teams going to be. I don't think that there's much debate. I think the committee really did get it right. Maybe the only question is Ohio State sitting here saying, you know what, 13-0, we ran the gauntlet in the Big Ten. We won the Big Ten championship. How were we jumped by LSU? Coach, did you have a problem with LSU jumping Ohio State?
I had a slight I wouldn't say a problem. It was curious to me. And here's why it was curious to me is the committee had them first the last 2 weeks. I had LSU first the last 6 weeks. Last night at about 1 o'clock, I just said, you know what, I got to make a decision here. I said, you know what, I believe in Ohio State. And so I put Ohio State above LSU, and I did it based upon these things. Their scoring differential, 470-point scoring differential. Their opponent winning percentage, 58%, 9 conference games, so the completeness of their team. Now, I also understand why LSU is number 1 and the resurgence of their defense. These last 3 weeks, they've only given up 12.3 points per game against some pretty good teams. So while I had OSU number 1, it was a tough decision for me. I can certainly understand LSU being number 1.
Yeah, for me, Coach, I didn't get as analytical with it because when I looked at all those numbers, there's so many that are in Ohio State's favor, and then there's some that are in LSU's favor. What I did know is the committee gave us a math equation, and their math equation simply said LSU minus defense equals number 2. LSU with defense is number 1. And LSU proved the last 2 weeks that they are more sound or they have fixed some of those defensive woes. Now, we all know Georgia didn't have Pickens for a half, didn't have Cager, didn't have DeAndre Swift. LSU can't dictate who trots out on the football field for the other team. But the committee said and made it clear that LSU was number 2 because of their lack of defense. That became obvious after LSU played Ole Miss. LSU said, okay, committee, we gotcha. Beat Texas A&M. Hold them to 7 points. Dominate Georgia in an SEC championship game. That Georgia essentially had home field advantage in Atlanta. For me, and for that reason, I'm not surprised by it at all. I'm not shocked with it, and I have no issues with it.
You heard Marty Smith in his report say that when LSU was announced as the number 1 team overall, that there was an audible roar coming from the room that the Tigers were pleased that they were the number 1 team in the country. I don't assume that LSU is afraid of playing anybody.
No.
Because they've beaten everybody all year. But does a small part of you, watch from the player's perspective, say, whew, we don't have to play Clemson?
No doubt about it. And I think as a player, you'd be lying if you didn't realize that Clemson presented a bigger challenge than Oklahoma. Offensively, defensively, talent-wise, and just as where both teams are from a health perspective. You would be absolutely lying.
A remarkable performance, though, just given the abilities that you have on the dance floor. I do want to ask you, your quarterback, Sam Howell, we all expected him to have a nice year. And honestly, Coach, I've watched him. I've been impressed. And then I looked at the numbers. I was like, oh, my goodness, 35 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. What can you say about how he's grown into the position and how he's led your team?
Greg, number one, he's thought about this position his whole life, so it's not too big for him. He grew up as a coach's son, and both mom and dad are athletes at Appalachian State, and he wanted to be this guy. Then he came in early, and he's just a natural. He's so accurate with the ball, and he's tough. When we lost our backup quarterback, Jace Reuter, we didn't have any experience behind him, so we couldn't even run fast. We just had to say, don't run, man, throw it away, because we don't want you getting hurt. And I think the upside is really, really good. He never got his ego out of line. He never got so numbers were more important than winning. As he continued to grow in the offense, he did a tremendous job leading with our defense, our special teams, and the future's very, very good for Sam down the road.
Hey, Coach, look, I know, at least I don't think anyway, that you're getting paychecks from us anymore, but I want to put you back into the old role you used to have here because no one played Clemson closer than you did all year. How were you able to do so, and how were you able to contain that explosive offense?
The thing that happens, if you watch Dabo's teams, they struggle more early than they do late. They are really good right now. And we slowed the game down. We huddled more. We're a tempo offense, but we wanted to shorten the game as much as we could and keep it out of their hands. We wanted to stay balanced on offense and go for a lot of fourth downs because we needed to stay on the field. And at that time, we were more healthy in the secondary, so we could give them a really healthy look of disguise. And we moved our safeties around. We played a lot of different zones and man, and we were the best defense that day we were all year. And we got a turnover, too. So everything happened that day for us. We just needed to make the 2-point play at the end. But now I laugh at Dabo. We set 50-50 balls outside, guys, when our receivers are going up for a ball. Clemson calls it 80-20. and I think that's true because they're tall outside, and you have to stack the box to stop Trevor Lawrence and ETN. And then when you spread out and you stack the box, you can't cover those guys one-on-one. You spread out, they're going to run the ball. So I do think that Clemson has a chance to be playing in the final game again.
Well, look, I know that they're excited about.
No, Kevin, you are not paying me anymore, by the way.
Appreciate the distinction there, Coach. And look, I know that they're excited down in Chapel Hill about Cole Anthony, but I know that they're real excited that the Tar Heels are headed back to a bowl game. Coach, congratulations and all the very best to you, and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. Happy holidays for you, and appreciate what you guys do.
Congratulations, Coach.
Joe Burrow, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Jalen Hurts,